You are listening to Reduce the Stigma, CJ106 docu-series funded by the Community Radio Fund of Canada. This series aims to provide information on local services, bring to light the work of healthcare professionals, and most importantly, reduce the discrimination faced by people with direct lived experience with a mental illness.
Hello, my name is Jan Eck, and this is Reduce the Stigma. We hope that you find this series on mental health resources in the Westman region both informative and helpful. We are glad to be bringing to light many issues of mental health and wellness, a topic we were shy to talk about in the past. Today, it seems we are beginning to open up a bit about mental health. We want to talk about it because it is something that affects all of us. The more we can talk about it, the more we can destigmatize what we previously held as fearful, unknown, or as something that other people went through. For a mental illness sufferer, talking about it might mean that some people are listening. It could mean that their concerns are being taken seriously, but it definitely means that they are not alone. Chances are you or someone you closely know currently lives with a mental illness. Yet, despite an explosion of information in popular culture surrounding mental health and well-being, stigma remains a barrier to diagnosis, treatment, and community acceptance. By promoting resources that can help people, by discussing the nature of mental well-being in an individual and throughout society, and by listening to the stories of people living directly with mental illness, we hope to demystify the experience and reduce the stigma against those suffering from very real medical conditions. In the previous episode, I began talking about how safe, secure, affordable housing is essential for the recovery of mental health clients, and in general, for maintaining our mental and physical health. In particular, we mentioned integrated housing as the preferred model. Integrated housing reduces the stigmatization of identifiable places like group homes. It helps build self-esteem by practicing life skills and leads to greater community acceptance. Glenn Crook, Canadian Mental Health Association Regional Manager for Westman, told us about the many integrated units created by the CMHA in the last decade alone. Glenn also discussed the Affordable Housing Program, STEP, or Solutions to End Poverty Permanently, emphasizing the strong community partnerships with local organizations such as the Brandon Neighborhood Renewal Corporation, and how it is also a strong example of integrated employment opportunities for mental health clients. CMHA Westman Region is also active in healthy community building and integrated work opportunities in other really great ways that we will hear about shortly, such as the popular Global Market and its brand new community kitchen. There is also the Building Refit store, recycling local materials for new exciting purposes, and again, it's an integrated workplace. In this episode, CMHA Westman Regional Manager Glenn Crook is with us to describe these projects and how they are important to help us correct injustice such as racism and discrimination, and provide equity for people who need this extra step up without judgment. He will also talk about the importance of system advocacy, especially in regards to raising social assistance rates to help keep up with inflation and housing costs.
My name is Glenn Crook. I'm the regional manager with the Canadian Mental Health Association, Westman Region. My training is in psychology, sociology, and Bachelor of Social Work. I was actually going to go into probations. There wasn't any job in probations at that time, and so where I did land a job was with the Brandon Mental Health Center, and that started me in the mental health field. Why I moved to the Canadian Mental Health Association is because in a large organization there's a lot of levels. So in order to do any programming or any new ideas, you have to pass it through a lot of levels. Whereas in a small organization, you report to a board of directors, but there's a lot more freedom to be able to do new programs.
In your words, what does the CMHA do?
The symbol of CMHA, it's called the fanciful person. And the fanciful person wants the best of all possible worlds. So what we want to do is really to promote health, and mental health is a major portion of that. So there are so many aspects which feed into that, whether it's housing, employment, good food, services, supports, you name it.
How is one referred to a local CMHA branch for resources? And what resources, generally, can one find at CMHA?
There's two ways of doing basically a self-referral, and that is you would come down to the office, which is located at 1233 on Rosser Avenue. You just come right on in, or basically just call our main office number, which is 726-8865. That's 726-8865. And we do have support services which are to help individuals who are dealing with mental health issues to help them live successfully in the community. So that program is funded through Prairie Mountain Health. So that would be the best way for individuals to apply for program supports. Now, if they were looking for housing, then again they would still come to the main office at 1233 Rosser Avenue and just pick up an application.
Housing seems to be one of the major programs or areas of involvement with CMHA. And more specifically now, I would love to detail the remarkable achievements of the CMHA and partners in creating much needed transitional and affordable housing, and by renovating awesomely neglected but key components of Brandon's core area in the recent years. 1202 Rosser, Massey Manor, and the always growing global market and Restore have provided many growth opportunities for CMHA clients. Explain how these projects fulfill CMHA core functions, key values, and principles.
I just want to correct you on one item there. Our used building materials thrift store is no longer called the Restore. We renamed it the Building Refit Store. Now, I just want to give you a history as to why we got into housing. It was never our intention to get into housing, and right now we have approximately 60 units. And the reason we got into housing is because initially we were advocating for the federal government to get back into doing housing, and that wasn't going anywhere. So we were advocating with the provincial government to get back into housing, but they couldn't afford to without the federal support, and so we were lobbying them to increase shelter rates, which they hadn't done for many, many years. Then we also were working with the city, hoping the city would do affordable low-income housing. That wasn't happening, and all levels were saying, hey, the private market would deal with it. Well, that never was happening, so why would the private market build new rental units and charge less than what they could get? That doesn't make any profitable sense for the private market. So because rents kept on going up and the supply of low-income housing was going down dramatically, and people were literally having to take their food out of their mouth in order to pay for the roof over their head. That's why in the year 2000 our board of directors made a conscious effort to get into housing, and since then we've built close to 60 units of low-income housing, and it's a wide range. We have actually, as of this morning, we added 2 additional homeless units, so we have a total of 12 emergency homeless units, and that is for homeless individuals. And I just need to clarify, there's a very much a wrong perception out there that all homeless individuals suffer from addiction issues or alcohol issues or things like that, when a good percentage of individuals who come into our homeless units are there because of violence. We have a women's shelter, but we don't have a men's shelter. Women beat up on guys too, and kick guys out. So, and we also serve a lot with regards to family breakups. For whatever reason, the family breaks up, and we have the mother and kids are suddenly without a home. They haven't been assaulted, but they still have no place to go. So a large percentage of the population that we serve is as a result of family breakup, and it's basically you and or I just running into very difficult situations. So homelessness is a very pervasive problem. And so we have emergency units. We also have a variety of units. Some are temporary. They're called transitional units where people can live in them up until 3 years. And then we have permanent low-income housing. But all of them are either rent subsidized or at rates which are very affordable. All of our housing is integrated. So we might have to a maximum 50% dedicated to individuals who have mental health issues we all have mental health issues, but more of this, more moderate or long-lasting mental health issues. But the other half is general market, because we believe in integrated housing so that populations should mix. And we don't want to have people identified just because they live in one of our buildings that they have a mental health issue, because half the people who live in our buildings are just anyone. And the word I'd rather use rather than stigma is discrimination, because discrimination really cuts to it in the sense of treating people differently. And we don't want that. We really don't want that. And that's one of the things that's very important. Mental health is not a black and white issue. And most of us fall into that gray category. So it's very, very important that people are able to talk about health issues, whether it's physical health or mental health, because one impacts upon the other. We have a new LED sign on our office, and we have a variety of sayings which are going up on it. But one of them, it identifies, and it's very good, it talks about the difference between illness and wellness. And if you just look at those two words, illness starts with an I. And the more we're isolated with I, is the more often we get sick because we're not reaching out. But the first two letters of wellness is we, and that is absolutely key for us to reach out, to be able to talk, because when we reach out, other people can help. And, one of the greatest therapies that I've ever studied in university was Rogerian therapy, which was basically listening to people. And when you listen to people and not give people advice, it just allows people to vent. But in expressing your troubles, you're also hearing what you're saying. And it's amazing how just letting it out to someone else helps in healing just by people actually listening. But I just wanted to say one part about housing. The reason we started with housing is because you don't have a place to stay. You're not going to get a good night's sleep. You're not going to be able to work. You're not going to be able to do education. You're not going to be able to raise a family. And it's very, very, very difficult. So housing is essential. And I just want to mention a little bit with regards to housing and homelessness. Our homeless units serve some individuals who are absolutely homeless, living on the streets, living rough. But also, the vast majority of homeless individuals we serve are people who are couch surfing. They don't have their own place, but they're staying with this person or that person for a short period of time. And that can be very, very dangerous because they have no control over that situation, and some people are very desperate as to not wanting to be kicked out. So there is a lot of individuals who are living in some very dangerous, unsafe situations where they have been sexually and physically abused as a result of that. So just because a person is couch surfing does not mean that they're safer at all. So it's a very, very important distinction. And, they estimate in the city of Brandon that there are several hundred individuals who are couch surfers. So when people think about homelessness, don't just think about the person sleeping on the sidewalk, but there still are those individuals. I know when I walk to work, I walk past CNIB every day, and 3-4 times I've seen people sleeping in their waiting area sort of idea, where their booths are, where their instant tellers are, because people just need a place. And so when someone's exiting, someone else goes in and they're sleeping on the floor when I walk by. We have 12 of them right now, and for individuals who are in need of emergency housing, they would call 761-5040, and that is the cell phone. And if we have a unit available, then we'll try and put someone into it. So that's the way to access those units. And then once a person is in those units, we try and help them move on to additional housing.
Yes, I mentioned the growing global market, and it seems to be always changing and always getting better. And as well, you mentioned the building refit store. Lots of changes happening there. Those are a few other projects very much associated with the CMHA, I know, as partnerships as well. Would you like to talk about the partnerships and how these projects specifically work for mental health clients?
What I like to review, sort of broaden it, rather than saying working for mental health clients per se, but works for the community
Absolutely.
at large. Say, for example, our building refit store, which is located at 25 on 12th Street. That, we have 30,000 square feet of used building materials. So it helps, when people, and there's no government subsidies for that at all. That is a self-sustaining business. And the reason why the Canadian Mental Health Association created that business is because when I worked up at the Brandon Mental Health Center, I always saw individuals who were in work training programs work training programs, and after a work training program, they moved on to a retirement training program. But in that whole gamut of many, many years, they didn't have a job. So what we did is we created the Building Refits store in order to create an employment opportunity for individuals. So that's why we created that. And we have provided a lot of work training, a lot of employment to individuals. And at times, that store has been 100% run by individuals. But again, it's an integrated workplace. So we have a variety of people working there full-time, and we also have part-time, and we also have individuals who are working through a variety of different programs, including individuals who are working off community service hours. So there's a lot of partnerships there. One of the beautiful parts about the Building Refit stores, you look at the whole climate change of what's going on, and more important than recycling and vastly more valuable is reusing. So if you can reuse the same product, you don't have all the production costs and all the labor, materials, and energy that are going into production. So that's one aspect that you just save just by reusing older products, and at the same time, if you're not interested in buying older products, but at least donate the older products to the store, because then it provides the opportunity for someone else who doesn't have the money to buy those products. And it helps the world. It does. It absolutely does. And further to that, we also, from time to time, we have a number of our people that we work with who have very limited means. So we also request, donations of good usable furniture. This morning it was drawn to my attention of a family who was sleeping on the floor, eating on a blanket on the floor because they didn't have a table, chairs, no mattresses. And this is a family, so, and the husband is working, but all the money is going to rent. There's two things with regards to equity, and I saw a beautiful picture on it. You could say, and it was at a school division conference, and it was talking about student equity, and it had 3 students standing up and looking over a fence. Okay? You had 3 different students. One student could see over the fence, the other 2 could not. But we were treating them all equally. They were all standing on the same side of the fence. Sometimes, because of the situations, in order to treat those other 2 students equally, you had to give them a step up. A higher box here for their starting point, and a higher box there for their starting point. So you need to do that for some individuals who are starting lower. Opportunity is what people want more than anything. And the same thing for people who are living with a mental health issue. We have a preferential hiring for individuals who have who have lived the walk the walk sort of idea. And at one time we were at about 60% of our employees. I'm telling you, some of we have a very good team here at the Canadian Mental Health Association, and those individuals are no different from any other of our employees, are not treated any different from other employees. Boy, they needed that opportunity to get back into, because a job gives you self-esteem. It gives you something to do during the day. I know myself, if I had nothing to do during the day except watch TV, I'd be depressed.
All right, so can we speak here to the concepts of stigma and discrimination perhaps further? Why does the word stigma not best represent the experience of people living directly with mental health concerns?
The thing that's absolutely essential is the normalization of health issues, regardless what that is. And one of the sayings actually from a person who direct lived experience with mental health issues, when I was talking about normal, she said, "Glenn, normal is a setting on a clothes dryer." That's pretty much it. But it's that concept of not treating people differently. Right. I was very happy when the Brandon Mental Health Center shut down. Very happy. And very happy that the government at that time, and actually it was a conservative government at that time, put the admission unit, instead of having a separate admission unit, they attached it to the Brandon General Hospital. Because for me, working in the mental health for so many years, made no sense to me. It was automatic discrimination. If you broke your leg, you went there. If you had a mental breakdown, you went there. Treated differently. Whereas this way, it's all in one facility. If you're in an emergency situation, whether it's depression, suicide, anxiety, a heart condition, You're in one waiting room, and that's the way we need to be treated, is that the normalization. We're all the same. Health is health. And so it's important for people to be able to talk about that. Health is health, because then we get into that we with regards to wellness, because people don't feel isolated or ashamed. You look at the history of the way people were so ashamed of individuals that they'd lock them away, that they would keep them in their basement because, they were so ashamed of someone having an issue. Well, that wasn't healthy for that individual. It wasn't healthy for anyone. Helping people is what's helpful. And I remember, even from the isolation factor, it's a well-known fact that bachelors don't live as long as married people. And because in a married couple, you have someone telling you need to get that checked out, or what have you, or reaching out for help sort of idea.
Can you tell us how social stigma or discrimination works against individual efforts to seek help?
There is two types of discrimination. There's external discrimination, whereas other people discriminate against individuals and treat people differently. It's that old situation of a neighbor who breaks their leg, and once the cast is off, Joe's the same Joe. Whereas on the other hand, Pete has a mental breakdown, gets out of the hospital. Well, Pete, I'm not sure that Pete's Pete, anymore. And even though they received treatment, just sort of like a diabetic, get on some medications, they're fine. They're absolutely fine. But they're still treated differently. And that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. And that needs to change. And I am not saying, and so what I'm saying is opportunities for individuals to prove themselves in the workplace. There's another type of discrimination, which is a very hard discrimination, and that is an individual who suffers with severe mental health issues, who also views themselves as they discriminate against themselves because they're ashamed of having a mental health issue. And that internal shame, which shouldn't be anywhere there, prevents a lot of individuals from reaching out. Individuals learn that. We're not born feeling shameful. We learn that from society, from other individuals who treat people differently. So if we accept everyone, then individuals won't have that internal shame, because that's a learned behavior. Freely talking about issues. Say, for example, when my wife passed away, I was not in a good headspace. There were times I was suicidal. There was no two ways on it. I was seriously, well, if I hadn't had kids, I probably would have gone with my wife. And even when I moved away from that, because there was many months where I was not in the brightest frame of mind, shall we say. But even when you start getting out of that sort of depressed area, you become giddy sort of idea. And then there's the risk of making decisions which are not the best decisions. So there's that whole period of time where I look back in that period of my time, I wasn't in gray, I was in darker shades for sure, and there were some black days. So people go through that, and I sure went through that, and I have a much better appreciation for that experience. And the other part that's very important is some people are reluctant to take certain medications because of the side effects. And it's easy for people to say, take your meds, blah, 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 blah. And medications are sometimes absolutely essential. Sometimes they're not, but sometimes they are. But at the same time, there are some medications which need to be changed because the side effects are so severe. I remember one time I took a medication for, it was just a health concern. A regular physical concern, and it said one of them was anxiety. It might have anxiety. I was on this medication for maybe 2-3 days, and I remember in my living room, I had a bout of anxiety that hit me I was on my hands and knees crawling to the bedroom. I was suddenly terrified, and that was a medication side effect. It was just, so when that hit me, and it's that concept, unless you've walked a mile in someone's moccasin, listen but don't preach.
You can become a member of the CMHA, and can you just describe how membership works with organizational structure? What kind of volunteer opportunities may be available at CMHA as well?
Well, first off, we do appreciate anyone who wants to take out a membership with the organization. That's a simple annual fee that helps support the organization. With that fee, you're basically invited to our annual general meeting. But other individuals who are able to donate to the organization, there's donations to our building refit store. We have free pickup of, good reusable building materials, but also naturally financial donations are readily accepted. There's also donations for, say for example, we have a number of businesses who are running campaigns, which the proceeds for 1 month will be going to CMHA. So that is a very easy opportunity. Another opportunity is for, there's bequests like in wills, but also for individuals, and there are times where an individual, for whatever reason, who's had a very difficult experience with mental health. Like say, for example, we're sitting in the Brent Tramer boardroom right now, and this boardroom is dedicated to his memory, who's a young man who killed himself. So when those unfortunate circumstances happening, some family members state, instead of doing flowers, donate to whatever organization. So we have had those as well. So there's a whole range from materials to businesses to individual giving to you name it. And I must really thank the large number of businesses and individuals who support us on a one time per year where we do our telephone fundraising for one of our many projects that we take on. You saw the whole list of donors who supported our community kitchen. Once a year, we do a telephone campaign. We only ask once for a specific project, and we have had incredible support from the citizens and the businesses of the city of Brandon. And anytime we do that, we acknowledge those individuals. Like in our community kitchen, we have to have 200 on that acknowledgement board. Those individuals really have allowed us to do the market, to do the community kitchen, to do so many things, which have been very, very helpful. With regards to volunteers, our board of directors is a volunteer board of directors. That's one aspect where people serve on it. But other individuals who are interested in volunteering, they would just contact our organization, and we would see what their interests are, and we would see what opportunities there are in the organization. So what we try to do is match people based upon interests and opportunities. It has to be a win-win for both.
Okay, well, how can one learn more about the CMHA? Is there a website, and what can one find there? And could you please just provide us some contact information on how to contact our local CMHA branch?
Contacting the local CMHA branch would just be, we are in the phone book, but our direct line is 727-5425. We have membership brochures, all that at our main office at 1233 on Rosser Avenue. We have a website under development. Okay, we do not have a website at this point now. There is a national website, there's a provincial website, CMHA, where our services do not fit that template model because we offer so much in Westman, so we're creating our own website. And it hasn't been kicked off yet. Okay. One of the things we want on our website is also YouTube videos because there's some awesome resources out there with regards to mental health issues, and if we want to have people be able to access mental health services, educational services directly off our website by being able to click on links. So in the privacy of their own home, they can click on this, whether it's depression or click on this, and it'll just provide a lot of helpful for suggestions sort of idea, and a lot of it from people who've walked the walk sort of idea. So it allows people to access services without having to go into other places. Total privacy that way.
Well, thank you once again, Glenn, for giving us such a wonderful interview.
Thank you for taking the time, because I really, really appreciate this, Jan. You do an excellent job, and I appreciate your dedication to this cause.
That was Glenn Crook, Regional Manager, CMHA Westman. The CMHA, with much active community involvement, provides support to people with direct lived experience with mental illness through integrated housing and employment opportunities. I hope you find this presentation on discrimination and the importance of equitable programs and system advocacy both informative and helpful to your understanding of mental health issues. My name is Jan Eck, and you've been listening to Reduce the Stigma.
You are listening to Reduce the Stigma, CJ106 docu-series funded by Community Radio Fund of Canada, narrated by Jan Eck, produced by Jan Eck, Matthew Higgs, Tyler Addison, and Janice Brohl.